Shalom. This is part 2 on the letter Tzaddi, right? On the Hebrew alphabetic acrostic, Psalm 119, and also reflecting on the 25th Shabbat Torah portion, Parsha number 25, which is known as Tzav in modern Hebrew, Tzav or Sawa, actually Sawa. And we pointed that out in the first part, and let's just regurgitate, chew the cud on it. And we have this right here. Here's the key word right here where it says command, right? Aaron and his sons. Now, that first word, right, the first word, which is the key word for the 25th Torah portion, is contracted as Tzav, right? But the full word is Tzawah, Tzawa. Now down here, this is, I guess, a Gentile kind of transliteration, right? But it's also based on the Ashkenazi Jews' pronunciation, or what we call latter Hebrew, right? Or late Hebrew, which is to say modern Hebrew. So in late Hebrew or modern Hebrew, so it is pronounced, or we can even say mispronounced. But we touch on both of those forms so that, we'll know where we're at, you know what I mean? So we have a good context of it. So the Torah portion is called Tzav, right? And it begins here in Leviticus 6 and 9, where it says, command Aaron and his sons, Beneu, right? Saying, and this is now concerning the law of the burnt offering, right? The law of the burnt offering. Now, there are 5 kinds, or there were 5 kinds according to the shadow. Now, we study the pattern of the tabernacle. We study the pattern of Lewi, or of Levi, the Levitical pattern, especially here in the Hebrew book of Leviticus, right? Because Hebrews, the epistle to the Hebrews, gives us the reason, right? Gives us the reason, the rationale, the overstanding, right? Hebrews, the epistle to the Hebrews is the overstanding. Chapters 7 and 8, which was also contained in the Tzavs for the New Testament, the Berit Chadasha, to fully complement the Berit Hashana. The Berit Hashana is the Old Testament readings, the Shana, the cycle and the order of readings, or we could say the weekly Torah portions, right? So here in the 25th Torah portion, which we know as the RSS number 25, Tzav, it says, it uses the word Tzav to command, but Tzava or Tzawa, right? Tzawa. So we're going to focus right here on the Hebrew, but in the Amharic is Zacho. So we still have this this syllabated sound. A syllabated sound is like, we have S, like a se, but some S's are syllabated. It's more of a s, that sound like a snake, right? But this sound is an emphatic sound. Now, in modern Hebrew, right, the late Hebrew does not bring out the true sound, and therefore the true pointing of this letter is lost in modern Hebrew. We're able to reconstruct this by the study of the Ethiopic. And this is why the prophet Amos said, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? And he says, furthermore, he would turn to us a pure language. Now, when we now start to study this particular, let's move this over here and let's move this forward, right? Here we have, okay, right here. Now, this is the word as we go into it. It's said to be a prime root or a primitive root, and it means it's intensively to constitute, to enjoin. Now, notice the word is translated as what? As command, right? The word is translated as command. But now let's study the Hebrew. Let's study use the Strong's Concordance, which is one of the few really resources, but much of the Strong's Concordance is verified and even validated by the Ethiopic. Right? This is the big secret within the so-called Gentile, Jewish Ashkenazi, as well as the, Christian studies, is that Ethiopic is referred to whenever they can't get the fullness of it from what they have, when they have to go to that which is older, that which is more archaic, and that which is more authentic as a point of reference in words, they always refer to the Ethiopic, and the Afro-Shemitic. In fact, Hebrew's Afro-Shemitic, Amharic is Afro-Shemitic, right? But the Cush question is also very interesting, but that's a point aside within the few minutes that we have here. Let's look at this word Tzava or Sawa, Matzawa, right? Sawa, Matzawa. Sawa means to constitute, to enjoin. Now here it said in the brackets that it's a primitive root. It's a prime root. This means it's an ancient root. The word primitive doesn't mean savage. It means first. It's a first root. This means this is an old word here, right? And this word also is found in many of the other languages, right, of that region. This is why we're going to study this particular letter, the Tse letter, in its connection with ancient Mitzrayim, what you call Egypt, and what many call Kemet. Because in ancient Egypt or Kemet, right, since the Kemetians, right, or the Mitzrayim people said that their root and their origin was the headwaters of the Nile, which pointed to Tob, Tobia, and Ethiopia. Right? So therefore, which one is older? Right? Which one is older? Which one is the root of which one? So although some of the Kemites, the Kemetians, and those into Egypt and Mitzrayim might boast to our Hebrews, to we Hebrews and our Hebrew brothers, black Hebrew Israelite brothers, the half of the story that they miss and the stone which the builders refuse has become the head of the corner. So when the Kemites say to the Hebrews, for example, we say, well, this right here is based on it's so clear and obvious right here. I mean, you can see that this is the horned viper. You want to see the horned viper? Let's go to the horned viper for a moment, right? Let's go to the horned viper as we are studying the context right here. Now, this is from this particular book right here. Let's paste that in. We didn't paste that in from before. Okay. It says too many images. You see it for yourself. So, let us close, this one right here. Give me one moment to save, Moses and tablets. All right. Let's save that right there so we can paste this in here. And this is not a clear cover, but you can see this is a very, very important book, written by one named John Lamb. in 1835. We came across this particular work, and the Lion of Judah Society, the college press, was able to reprint this. So we have this in reprint, again. So it's in publication again, but you can also find it online. You can find it on the Google Books. You can also find it on, I think it's an archive as well. And this is where we're at on archive. So the Hebrew characters, the full name of this particular document right here is, the Hebrew, we call it Hebrew hieroglyphics. Hebrew characters derived from the hieroglyphics by Mr. John Lamb, right? And so John Lamb's 1835 Hebrew hieroglyphics contains and explores the original pictures applied to the interpretation of various words and passages in the sacred writings of the Hebrew Bible, and especially the history of the creation and the fall of man, or the fall of humanity, or we can even say the fall of the black man, if we put things in their proper context. To whom much is given, much is required. Much has been learnt and discovered since Mr. Lamb's first presented his findings and speculations. However, his work still remains relevant and adds to our understanding of one of the earliest and still most noteworthy for its time and substance, right? So, we like he makes his point. And I think even the point then, it probably was kooky back in his time. People are saying, no, not from the hieroglyphs or such and such Hebrew, because the whole, Gentile, Jewish and Christian, that whole thing, Protestantism and, so forth and so on. So one's dismissed his work in the same way they dismissed much of, Gerald Macy's works. Now we find, that their works were before their time. That now with the studies that many of us are doing, we are doing at this present time, we find that his works as well as Macy's works, when rightly divided, when we rightly divide the truth, are very, very relevant. So here you see right here, this is, archive. Let me show you this right here. You go to archive right here, right? And you can download the book. You can read the book online as well. Now let's go to this tab right here. And we want to make this particular point concerning the Tzaddi, right? Now this letter right here, the Tzaddi, this is where he takes this and he speculates that, let me move this up right here. Okay. We have the character, right? This is the square or Babylonian later Hebrew character. This is the transition. This is the hieroglyph, the ancient hieroglyph. Now note when it says hieroglyph, it's not saying specifically Egyptian hieroglyphs. In other words, it wasn't only the so-called Mitzrami or Mitzrayim or the Pt2 who alone had hieroglyphs, right? Much of that came from inner Africa. Most of that came from inner Africa, from the source of the headwaters of the Nile. And even the ancient Egyptian testimony to their own origins will point that out. So we have to recognize that even language, we're finding that root of the linguistics coming out of Africa. Reminds me of the Steel Pulse song. I discovered a version that's not the King James version, for out of Africa came the Garden of Eden. I think that's on the album, Babylon the Bandit, something like that. Babylon the Bandit. Remind me of the book From Babylon to Timbuktu. Now, so here, horned beasts. So in the meditation that I've been on since this Torah portion, the previous Torah portion, actually, I think even before that, I was meditating on the various different letters and, and their relationship to the words that they're found in, as we have from Tzav, Sawa, with command. And let's return to that for a moment, again, within the time that we have here, right? So this particular book, highly recommended, right? So we have Sawa, right? To constitute, to enjoin. Now, in King James, KJV, in the KJV, the King James Version, it's been translated. Here's how you'll find it in the English translation. So here's the word that they find from the Hebrew manuscripts, or from the Hebrew documents, the scrolls, right? Or the Masoretic scrolls, the traditional scrolls. And this is how it's been translated. So what we're seeking to do is get beyond, or get behind the KJV, getting behind the KJV translation. Let's see what has been translated and how they had to make a choice, because the word means to constitute, to enjoin, but notice how it's translated here. In some verses, it's translated as appoint. So when we see this particular verse right here, it says command Aaron and his sons, can also be interpreted appoint Aaron and his sons. Here it says bid, can be also used in the sense of forbid, right? Give, right? And now in the parentheses is added in to give a kind of a context, but bid, right? Give, it could be give a charge, or charge Aaron or Aaron and his sons. Give a, given, send with, command, send with a command. Now you have to understand that in the parentheses is a context, because there's so much that's in the word. There's so much that's in the word. In other words, when you look at the word sawa or tzava in the Hebrew, what do we really have here? We have actually three glyphs. We're almost like a cartouche or a shen, right? So it's translated as command. Notice that it's translated as command, but then it's a commander, commandment. Send a messenger is also how the word sawa, right? Send a messenger, put, set, in order, Aaron and his sons, in order, send a messenger, Aaron and his sons. So now we look at it, we look at the verse again, and we say, okay, that is the verb. Remember, the verb is the action. Here, it's been translated as command, while the word itself means to constitute or enjoin. Now, in the context of the use of this word right here, is concerning the law or the Torah of burnt offerings, right? The Torah of burnt offerings. And from ancient Egypt, right, or ancient Kemet, we find this, the Tzah, as the horned viper, right? The horned viper, Seretis. Now, many will tell you that that's all it means. But here's where John Lamb's book even goes a little deeper and goes a little bit further to really clear up, right? To really clear up the matter. Let's bring up John Lamb's book once again, because it really refers to a horned beast, right? It's really referring to a horned beast, not just a snake, right? Some say it's just a snake. It's not just a snake. The snake is the emblematic symbol. You see what I'm saying? But it's the idea, because there's another symbol for a snake too, right? Which some say is a J sound, or some even a G sound, right? Let's go right here and let's see if we can bring this in over here. Okay, now here he goes through a set of the letters, and let's see if, I think here we go. Amen. We have it right there, so we can put this in. Here we go. Now I think he begins from the page before, and let's see if we can. Okay, no, actually I think it begins up here. Okay, it was on the right page. There we go, right there. So we're on page 18. Right? He says, this letter is the representative of some horned animal laying down. We have the letter with its original meaning. Then he points out two scriptures, points out Isaiah, XIII, which is 13, X for 10 and each I for 1, so 13 and 21. And Jeremiah L is for 50, 50 and 39. And those are interesting readings right there, speaking of the, I think, Tzaddi, the Tzaddi, which some say either is a type of or we'll touch on it, but it's a horned, speaking of horns. The key signification here is horns. This is what he's bringing out. And the horn beasts shall crouch, shall couch there. And the horned beast shall couch there. It is found also in Tzon, right? Or Tzon, or Tza'an, Tzon, right? Tzon, Tza'an, which means small horned cattle, right? So the Tzi, or the key significant letter that we have in 119, 137, when we get to 119, 137, Psalm 119 is a acrostic, an alphabetic acrostic psalm. That means every 8 verses is according to the Hebrew alphabet. So here they call the letter Tzaddi, right? We refer to it as Tzadik. It's also Tzadik, which is for righteous, right? This is why the key word right here, right? You have a Tzadik, right? Which means just, right? Righteous or just. Let's see if we can bring this up so you can see this a little clearer. Here you go right here, just, right? Now notice something. You notice that this is the same horned letter, right? This is the same horned letter, right? Here as Tzadik, or Tzadik, or Tzadik, as in Tzadik, or Melchizedek, king of righteousness, king of justice, right? To be caused to make right in a moral or forensic sense, right? In a moral or forensic sense. And what we're doing right here is a forensic presentation, a public presentation, right, of I findings. Now, notice how it's translated in some places. This is the root, right? This is the primitive root. Remember, the key is this first letter, right? Each of these letters have particular signification. And the Hebrew, right, the Hebrew in particular has preserved much, right? The fullness actually, when it's rightly divided, rightly studied, of the ancient wisdom. That's why it says Moshe was learned in the wisdom of the Egypts, of Mitzrayim, right? He was learned in the wisdom of the Egypts, and he was mighty in word and in deed, because Egypt was like the school, like the university. It was like the repository of a far older and ancient wisdom, right, of humanity. It's like if you go in the Library of Alexandria, for example, right? Except that was just one library. In the ancient time, in the time of Moshe, right, there was ancient wisdom, right, that had gotten confused, right, but it was still there. You understand? So what Moses was able to do with the guidance of the Ruach HaKodesh, right, is to rightly align that which was misaligned. You know what I mean? This is why so much is, when one say that Moses stole and this out of ancient Egypt, these ones are just hyperventilating. If you rightly study, you know what I'm saying, that even the ancient Pt2, right, owed a debt to Moses. We're speaking about the real people, not other people who came along later on and claimed to be and stole identity and all of that. We're not talking about them. let's deal with the fact of the matter, right? As we're seeking to present right here. So the meaning of this particular letter, right? Its ideal meaning is a horned animal. Horns, horn, which speaking of the substance of the horn, also relating to moon and also relating to branches in a reflective sense of the root. But the root idea of this letter is horned animal. How interesting, my brothers and sisters, that the place that this is found is concerning the animal sacrifices, right? The exact place, right? The exact place where this is found is concerning the animal, the horned, and notice these animals have horns, right? This is some of the ancient relationship right there. Let's see if we can, let's see if we can bring this up right here. Wanted to show you this. Let's see. Okay, it's one of these windows here. Okay, it was one of these windows here where, okay, here it goes right here. This is from Messianic Torah Truth Seeker.org. Here we go. These are the horned, notice all these animals have horns, right? So no doubt that word, right, awa, right, also has a signification because of the particular glyph right there. So just an interesting study. There's some more to it as we connect, Isaiah chapter 28, right? Chapter 28. I see we're pushing on the time here and might not have enough room here to get this in here, but if I can, I'll give you the verse and you can read it for yourself. If you study Isaiah chapter 28, verses 9 to verse 13, where it says, whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine or teaching? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. Right? Now this is a very interesting prophetic word, right, that we have right here. So you see the relationship, right? There's that relationship, and then there's also that relationship with another tongue, right? Will he speak to this people? Now let's move this right here, and this is the Torah portion actually, for Tzav or Tzawa, as you can see right there. And now the link on one level is this out of Egypt, right? That's one interpretation because the Seretis has horns. But when you get to the deeper interpretation, you see how it relates to the horned animals, because in the particular Torah portion, it was concerning the sacrifice, right, of the 4 to 5 kinds of animals, horned animals. So the word says right here, right, the word right here says, for precept must be upon precept. If you read that in the Hebrew, it says Tzav, it says Tzav, Tzav letzav, Tzav letzav.